Daymond John grew his clothing line FUBU with $40, a few sewing machines in his mother's basement into a $6 billion fashion industry giant. He's also one of the original Shark Tank stars and has invested millions in making entrepreneur dreams come true. Now he is out with his latest book, Powershift. Transform any situation, close any deal, and achieve any outcome. Daymond John, welcome to the show. Thank you for this exclusive interview. Nice to meet you and finally have you on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, your book probably could not have come at a more opportune time where you talk about, transforming any situation, with small businesses desperate for a lifeline right now, Daymond. What are you advising them?
Well, first of all, most small businesses don't have the option of getting bailed out by the government and pulling down a revolving line of credit, and and shedding a lot of different assets they can actually make money off of. So what the small business is going to do? Number one, first of all, they're going to take inventory of their staff and inventory of their physical assets that they have, and they're going to try to get as small as possible on that. Now, I'm not saying that they should be letting go of their staff, but the reality is if you're in a service industry, like you own a bunch of restaurants, what are you going to do? You have perishable goods and you have waiters and waitresses that, you don't have anybody to serve. So they're going to have to look at hard looks at those type of things. Then the next thing they're going to have to look at is their cash to death. How much cash do they have in the bank and or assets or access to over the next couple of months, 3, 4, 6 months? I mean, the good news about this is I believe that it will be not over, but we'll be coming out of this in 6 months, unlike, the 2008s of the world where you don't know where it's going to end. The bad news of it is everything stopped on a dime and you have to make an immediate plan of action and response. So as I was saying about they're going to have to renegotiate their land leases, their credit cards, or their any kind of bills and the outgoing of cash to try to renegotiate those things. And they're going to try to have to settle at pennies on the dollar with any kind of third-party vendor. So those are the initial things you have to do. You have to stop the bleeding at first, and then you have to then say, what assets do I have that I can dig into, whether it's relationship capital, whether I do have inventory, whether I do have staff and I've had to cut my staff down, or maybe I've asked all of my staff to be cut down 30% so I can keep 100% of them, or do I just cut the ones that are the biggest winners so I can keep most of them? Those are the questions you have to ask. And then you have to start digging down and saying, how can I make value of what I do have? What are my assets and what are my liabilities?
So two important points there, Daymond. One, when you talk about a 6-month horizon, and hopefully, it's 6 months or sooner, is that based on confidence? Do you like the rescue plan that they've pitched, or what are you basing that on?
There's a lot more to be uncovered in the rescue plan. I've heard everything from, unemployment is going to go up another $600. You're going to get another $600 a week. I'm not sure if it's $400 to $600 or $600 on top of the $400. I've heard of loans for small businesses, and it turns into a grant if you keep your employees. So I'm not educated enough. I don't think any of us are educated enough to understand what this is as it rolls out. I'm optimistic about it because I think that no matter what, they have made a lot of things from the credit markets to liquidity to the banks. They've really put a lot into what's happening immediately. The reason why I say 6 months, though, is because on the flip side, a lot of people here are manufacturers or they understand business. Listen, if I made a T-shirt right now and I knew that the T-shirt, forget the T-shirt solving infectious disease, forget the T-shirt being a test. If I made a T-shirt right now and I need to get it out to 350 million people, it's just a regular T-shirt. I would not be able to get a T-shirt out in the hands of 350 million people for anywhere from 2 to 3 months after manufacturing it, shipping it, distributing it, getting it to all the other people to get it out. So imagine if that was medicine, imagine if that was test. It's going to be very challenging to get that out. So I'm only saying that because I don't want people here to be unrealistic and say it's over in 2 months or 3 months. I think we have a 6-month haul on this, and the effect on the economy over the time will be at least 2 years. However, that's the downside. The good side is some of the biggest brands that we know today were launched during the '08 recession, things like, I think it was Instagram and Lyft and, a lot of these brands. So there are going to be a lot of people rising to the top, and there are going to be a lot of people adjusting to this new way of business.
Daymond, I had watched another interview you were doing where you also said, understanding and tapping into the power of working virtually and how a lot of these businesses will have to change their mind frame. And how do you convert what you're doing and move it to a social media platform? Tell us more about that, how we really have to change the way we think now. And it's forcing us to almost change the way we do business.
Yeah, some of the people who are listen, I'm going to be 100% honest. If I wasn't on Shark Tank and I wasn't learning from the people who are coming up on Shark Tank, the new way they're doing business, like a Bombas Socks, I would have been doing business the old way. I wouldn't have been virtual. I wouldn't have been selling direct to my consumer, and I would have been at the mercy of a retailer. And I have learned the importance of it, and it took me quite some time to do that. If you were a great restaurant, or you had 5 restaurants, but you were only working with Uber Eats and other delivery services, and you weren't giving your customers incentives on how to capture their email, their data, and reward them personally. Well, then now your customer is potentially down the block, and you don't know how to reach your customer right now. And then your customer is being overwhelmed with offers by people who do know how to reach them, and you're going to fall by the wayside. And so people have to now learn how to do this, whether it's a restaurant or whether it's me. I'm working with my team of 35, 40 people virtually. It's working out. I was probably about 50% ready for something like this because I make sure that I hire much younger and smarter people than me. And that's the whole reason we hire people. Wow. We're supposed to hire people smarter than us because I'm Batman often and they're Robin. And sometimes, most of the time, to tell you the truth, they're Batman and I'm Robin, because why would I hire you if you weren't smarter than me and you weren't showing me new ways to do business?
Well, on that point, Daymond, you say you were somewhat prepared for this, but could you have really have ever imagined a situation of this magnitude and so quick?
Never. You're never prepared for disruption. But I was prepared because I went through '98 crash. I went through the .com bubble crash. I went through 2001 when planes hit buildings. I went through '08, and I understood, and I always understand, even in my personal life, that 20% of my time needs to be exploring and learning other things that are going to be applicable to my life. And that I will fail in most of them, but I need to put that 20% into those new things because times will change. But no matter what, a recession, depression, war will come, diseases will come every 5-10 years. And I'm not a conspiracy theory person. It's just, it happens to have happened like that more often than not. And how we prepared doing what we see coming, like other technologies and other ways to increase sales and reduce costs. I mean, those are the ways you have to understand. I'm a very simple guy. There's only 3 ways to deal with a customer. Acquire a new one, upsell a current one, and make one buy more frequently. There's only 2 ways to operate a business, increase business or reduce costs. There's only 4 reasons why people ever buy things. It would be entertainment, to educate themselves, right? Nutrition for their body, or to pay somebody to do something that they are too lazy to do themselves. I'm a really simple guy, but I try to find new ways that these things are being operated so that I can apply them to my businesses.
No, absolutely. Well said. And there's a nice crash course from Daymond John right there. Let's talk about your book now, because in it you feature interviews from Mark Cuban, Kris Jenner, Lindsey Vonn, Pitbull, such a wide variety of people. How did you decide who you wanted to interview and feature?
Well, it's really because I'm dyslexic, and this is my 3rd book. This is my 5th book total, but my 3rd book in 5 years. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't write books just to write books. It is very, very difficult for me. However, I feel there's an obligation. A lot of people need mentorship, and I think mentorship is the number one reason why people are successful. And what I do when I write these books is it's not about anything. I mean, you turn on CNBC, and because we're in such heavy rotation, I'm there. We're like the Kardashians of CNBC. So it's not that I need more attention in that way, right? It's because my first book, my third book, which we'll talk about for 2 seconds, was The Power of Broke. You don't need money to make money. Fine. We get that out of the way. I've taught everybody, stop listening to other people saying you need money to make money. The next one was Rise and Grind. How do you make the most out of your 24 hours a day? Okay, we've gotten that out of the way. So after I do that, and when I do my public speaking and I get thousands of requests, I look at the most commonly asked thing that I never addressed that I also want to learn. And over the course of that time, I looked and I noticed many people said, thank you for all the great books, but guess what? I'm just a little so forth and so on. I don't have any power in this world. I'm a nobody. I mean, we've all had that person who goes, you know what? I don't know about you, but I'm a nobody. I can't do that. And then other people say, well, somebody took the power away from me. Or other people go, when are you going to give me a shot? Or my boss is not going to give me power. And I realized one thing. A lot of people think they need permission to have power in their life and negotiate. And I'm giving you permission now to have power because I promise you, nobody is going to give you power. Even as I respect you all I want, I'm not coming to your house, kicking down the couch, knocking the Doritos out of your hand and picking you up and saying, I'm going to make you more powerful than me. I'm just not going to do it. I'm sorry. I got other things to do. So I wanted people to understand the only thing that separates you and I, anybody in the world, from who is happy or successful or less successful is what we negotiated in life. And so in this book, I've given people the ability to negotiate, but not the way you think. It's not walk up on Shark Tank, you got 1 hour in front of Barbara and Mark and Daymond and Kevin. This is negotiate with yourself first, understand your why. Why are you doing this? Are you doing this because your parents told you need to do this? Are you doing this because you're trying to impress somebody? Are you doing this because you truly want to do this and make change? Are you doing this because your society told you want to do, you're supposed to do this? Then build influence, then negotiate. And when you get to the negotiating table, it is not about what's in it for you, what's for the other person. And then after that, nurture the relationship and get 10 and 20 and 30 and 50 more deals out of that. And I go specifically into details. And the reason why I interviewed the Mark Cubans and the Pit Bulls and Lindsey Vonns of the world is I go into this as a student. And I go, I've done this in my life. I didn't know I had a technique to it at all. Can I see a defining technique or strategy you use that I can apply and tell my readers? But I also interview 2 or 3 or 4 subjects that are everyday people. And I later on, we'll get into one of them that the people right now don't have to say, I'm intimidated. That's Lindsey Vonn. That's Billie Jean King. She changed the face of sports. No, I have other people in there also that we can have some takeaways from that.
One woman who was a working mom, right? Who you want to tell us about that story? Crystal, I believe was her name.
Yeah.
Working mom.
Crystal, I was just on the phone with her. Actually, she's the one who hooked up this Skype for you and I. All right.
Oh, so, I love Crystal then. So right. So tell us about her story, because she was a working mom. She couldn't meet the hours. She had a premature baby at home.
Yeah. So Crystal was working mom, and she went on maternity leave, and then she had a preemie baby. She goes back to where she was working, where she loved the place and they loved her, and she said, I have a preemie baby, but I've been really studying how to become work virtual. Is it possible for me to work 20 hours here and 20 hours at home? I need to be with my baby. And they said, unfortunately, we love you, but the policy here has changed and we can't work with you any longer. But because she had also learned how to work virtually, because she understood that the top job employment for females in this country are secretaries, administrative assistants, and a lot of that stuff. Of course, females are CEOs as well. She realized that, and she realized a lot of the outsourced work were people in India and various other countries where, if I'm calling you, I want to have a conversation with you and make sure you know, my industry, my society. She became a virtual assistant and went over to a company called Belay, Belay. And this is important for everybody listening, because you could work virtually as a designer, bookkeeper, accountant, COO, CMO. So first of all, people should look into Belay. But she now lives in Ohio. She gives me 20 hours worth of work a week. Another person 10, another person 5, whatever she wants to do. After this thing, where we're in now, self-quarantining, I had to ask her, I had to beg her, can you give me 35 hours a week and help show the rest of my staff how to work virtually? So here's what she does now. She does that. She stays at home. She doesn't have to go through the snow or go through the heat. Doesn't have to wear a mask around the house. She gets to stay with her baby. She dictates the hours that she will work, how many she'll work, and what time she'll work, and we agree upon it. And she doesn't work for anybody that she doesn't need to or doesn't want to work for. She's not at the mercy of anybody else's business, and she makes more money than she's ever made in her entire life.
I love that story. And thriving in this environment, this type of environment, incredible. So Daymond,
I'm not going to tell too many more people about her because I don't want her stolen from me.
Across all the people you've interviewed, did you find there was a common denominator?
Yeah. I found that they generally, even wherever they were at, they were never comfortable. And they would put a certain percentage of their time and energy in investing in knowing what else was coming down the pike. And they would actually they would not care if they're embarrassed that they failed. They would just keep trying. They also were very true to who they were. They knew their why. And they also would want to know, they also knew what they expected out or what they were willing to deal with in the negotiation, because a lot of people don't know their why and they don't know what they're willing to settle for in the negotiation. And they also made it win-wins for everybody in the room and made it a really easy barrier entry for who was ever in the room. And they were always in it for the long haul. And if you look at me I turned around one day and said to me, Daymond, somebody said to me, how did you create a global brand? Then how did you become an investor? And you didn't go to finance, and then you become New York Times bestselling author, then a motivational speaker, and then you're on Shark Tank and a television personality for over a decade. How did you go? It's hard enough to get to the top of any one of those. How did you manage to do that? And I said, I don't know. I'm just lucky. And they're like, you're not lucky. There's something going on. So then I look at a Diddy, who was a dancer, then he owned a record label, then he was a top music artist himself. Then he moves over and starts eating my lunch and clothing. Then he moves over and starts becoming a great liquor executive and owner. And then he moves over to TV. Wait a minute. How did you get to the top of those? Magic Johnson, the Kardashians. There's something that people have that I put in the book, all the combinations of what people can do to move throughout industries and get to what they want.
Fascinating, Daymond. Finally, I was thinking about Shark Tank, and when Shark Tank first launched, it was in the middle of the economic crisis, but it reaffirmed the American dream. It gave hope to so many people. How, now that we're in the midst of another crisis, what role do you think Shark Tank can play again?
It can play exactly what it's played. By the way, due to our amazing fans, they convinced ABC to move it back to Friday nights at 8 p.m.
Yes.
But I think, I'll be very honest. I didn't think Shark Tank would work. I didn't know why anybody would want to see 5 business people that they barely knew besides Mark Cuban talk about business, right? And who cares, right? But I think Shark Tank is the American dream for various reasons. If you're sitting on the couch and everybody's been telling you you can't do it, you need money to make money, or you have to have connections, and you see every Friday night 4 people walk up there and say, I'm a working mother, or I'm a retired this person, or I have these physical challenges, or I'm a 12-year-old little kid named Mose Bose. When you see them come up there and nothing has stopped them to get in front of us, I think that's the American dream. And you go, why can't I do it? Also, Shark Tank has gotten to the point where we've given people the vernacular of what to say in this country. I mean, people before Shark Tank couldn't randomly be at the water cooler going, so I think your royalties should be, or what's your margin? I'm going to give you a clawback on that. Nobody, I had an 11-year-old telling me something about, mezzanine financing the other day. And I was like, where'd you learn that from? He was like, Kevin O'Leary. I was like, all right, no problem. You're dead to me. But it shows people so many things. And I think everybody right now who's saying either I'm a small business, how can I learned from Shark Tank, what's my 20% or my 80%? Let me focus in on that, or what to do with my employees, or employees going, I've always been trying to tell my boss and my company we should do this. And my voice was never heard because we were doing okay. But maybe this is my shot to move up the ladder a little bit and help my boss and my company as well as help myself. Or as an individual who said, I got laid off and I've been trying to work on this deal right here. I want to sell donkeys. And by the way, I'm in my daughter's room. I go, I've been wanting to sell donkeys, and now is the time to sell donkeys. I don't know what it is, but that's what Shark Tank does for people.
That's awesome. And, and that's, so well said, Daymond. And, we had Robert on a few weeks ago, and I also like the fact that he brought up that you guys actually,
speaking of donkeys,
you guys actually like each other. You're friends, the Sharks. You hang out outside of the set.
We do. I love my fellow Sharks. We love joking about each other, about how much we despise or joking each other. But I absolutely love my fellow Sharks. And I've been watching, you know what? I'm going to tell you a quick story. The way that we work together, like Barbara and I, Barbara is one of my closest friends. The story about her getting fished for $400,000 and they took money out of her bank account because they did. And a lot of people said, how can a shark get gotten like that? Listen, the bad boys and girls in this world are concentrating on one thing and one thing only, is scamming you. Barbara knows great about real estate and marketing, various other things. She can't know about everything in the world. But you know what? Barbara was smart enough to say it immediately when it happened. I got scammed. Here's what happened. A lot of people don't know. Our buddy Robert is one of the top 10 cybercrime experts in the world. Robert called her up and said, Barbara, let me tell you something. This is how everybody can learn from this. The money is gone out of your account technically, but you have 48 hours that the money stays in the bank before it goes to whoever it is. Don't waste your time waiting for your lawyer to get to the office, waiting for your lawyer to serve, whatever the case is. Call the bank right now. Tell them exactly what happened. Barbara called the bank with only a couple hours left before the money went out of the account, and Robert saved her from losing $400,000. Wow. And that's how we are. We're like brothers and sisters. And I just think it's amazing to be part of this family.
You know what's crazy, Daymond? That was the day. So Robert was on, and that's what we spoke about: is don't get fished in the middle of this crisis. Yeah. And then we filmed that segment, and 2 hours later, the news broke that Barbara got, unfortunately, fished.
Oh, really? Well, you're on top of it already. So thank you for letting people know what's going on out there.
I hope you're staying safe. You're staying isolated. How are you handling it personally?
I am. Listen, I'm loving it. I have time to spend with my wife and my 3-year-old little girl. I mean, she's literally going crazy. She doesn't have any kids to play with. So we just put her in a straitjacket for most of the day. And, I'm just making a bunch of calls and working with my staff and trying to find out how we can do exactly everything I've been saying. How can I reduce the outlay, tap into my young, amazing staff, and also hopefully, give some people a little bit of motivation in this very dark time and uncertainty. And more importantly, I just want to tell, before we talk about any business or anything else, please just stay at home because, I had to do a PSA for the governor of New York. 55% of the people with cases right now are between 18 to 49 years old. And they're giving it to the older, the people they love in their lives. You've got to all stay in for this moment and just be strong about it, because you don't want to hurt other people. Of course, I don't want to lose anybody, but you definitely don't want to lose your family members. So you've got to take this seriously.
Amen. Well said, Daymond. And thank you for bringing your positivity and sunshine. I feel it, even though we're so far away. I feel it coming through the screen. So thank you so much, especially in these very dark times. Powershift. Transform any situation, close any deal, and achieve any outcome. We need to read this now more than ever. Thank you so much, Daymond John.
Thank you. Have a good one.
And thank you for watching. You can follow me at Daniela Cambone on Twitter and stay tuned to Kitco.com for more. Thank you for watching.